It's just a few days from fall time, and I figured we'd do a little update on the hobby house garden that has gone feral. Now I see some fireweed that's about to blow a bunch of seeds around, so I'm gonna grab that. This little guy right here, it looks like what are them things? Them dandelions. They look like dandelions, but they're not. Just make sure that gets out of here. We'll have it in the driveway instead. But I've basically let this go fallow, if you will. I managed to get quite a bit of corn seed out of here. About half of the corn got eaten by deer, which really wasn't a surprise, but they nipped them and drug all the plants out into the yard. It's kind of funny. But as I've said before, I'm not hungry right now. If deer want to come in and eat, then that's totally fine. They should know that this is the delicious yard to be in long term. And if I can get about 5 deer coming through here constantly, then you know, if I was hungry, let's just say I was hungry, then 5 deer is enough to eat 1 per year and have enough deer to replace themselves very easily. And this year we got 2 little bucks that have tried to scrape everything around here, and then the mama that's running around. Been kind of fun to walk up on them here and there, but like I was saying, this has pretty much turned into a feral patch. We do have our black raspberry that is still snaking through, and this type will taproot here, so you can see it's actually trying to like push in, and it'll create new plants out there. I can dig them up, I can move them later. But all the vegetables and everything that I planted in here, we've got a lot of like kales and lettuces that are really hiding that understory. So as we get closer to fall and all of this summertime flower dies off, I'll chop and drop those and then let some of the other stuff come through. So this white flower here that has come up, this is called snake root. It has a ton of pollinators just all over. We have various bees. There's a ton of these little beetles here. It's the same one that comes through every year. And also looks like we have some beans that are growing up on this that never, did it ever make any beans? I don't remember getting any beans off of this. So yeah, nothing but biomass at this point. But I did have success with the corn this year, at least breeding. I didn't get a whole bunch of corn seed back out of it, but it did work. So I'll use that to rebreed next year and add in. But otherwise, I'm just kind of letting this sit and bulk up, if you will. And if I really want to start fresh this next year, I'll lay some cardboard over it, get a little bit more topsoil to kind of like tamp that down and just restart. And we'll have all this extra biomass. You know, the seeds won't be able to penetrate through the cardboard, but we'll have a lot of nutrients that are going to be locked underneath. So you know, not a lot to talk about just because it's gotten completely overfilled with stuff, and I'm totally fine by that. Right now we do have the snake root blooming, and let's go to the front and I'll show you the big old swath of native asters that I have. Also these other, you can't really see, my car's blocking it, but there's a lot of other flowers in there, native flowers coming up. They've been blooming all year. Maybe from this side, there's some purple phlox hiding in there. We've got that yellow flower that's really tall and I have no clue what it is. And then there's a bunch of coreopsis hiding in there. But you can see this big old swath right here that's just starting to bloom. These are wild asters. And this is pretty much the last season bee food that's going to be out. And since we have the snake root currently blooming, they're really not coming over to this. These have actually just bloomed in the last day or so. So maybe they're not producing a whole lot of pollen yet, and the bees haven't moved over because of that. But when we get a little bit later in the season, these are actually blooming later this year than they were last year. And I only know that because of Facebook memories telling me so. But we're going to start seeing a huge pollinator colony just being on these until pretty much fall, you know, way into fall. As you can see, one of the arborvitaes died this year. This happened all over the town. A whole bunch of them died. We had very severe drought. We had essentially 2 straight months of no rain and 100-degree plus weather. And a lot of them didn't like it. And I basically had no warning. It just died on me. There was nothing I could do. I tried to water it and bring it back. We have one teeny little bit down here that stayed alive, just the tiniest amount. So I'm probably going to dig that up and move that into the backyard around the rock crawling course. You know, I don't want to totally just like throw it out or anything, but we do have a bunch of other flowers and little things that are hiding in here that didn't quite burst through this season, but they will next year. And otherwise, I've just been kind of watching the trees in this segment. There's been a lot of mulberries that have come up, and you know, they're native. They are really good with drought tolerance, and so I'm just going to leave them and kind of cut them to a certain height every year so that I can kind of like manage them and reach all the berries that come off of them. And I don't want to shade out too much of everything in that direction, so I'll just manage that a little bit, and everything else is actually doing pretty good. While we're out here, let's walk over to the neighbor's yard and see how all those flowers are doing. So last year, it was the first year we had some extra topsoil, we had some extra rock, and I made this this pile in my neighbor's yard. He totally wanted me to do it, so I did, and essentially just piled a bunch of stuff up and mimicked what I did on my side, but instead of planting big things, I just threw a bunch of native seed out into this one. So we have, they've already bloomed, but we had these gray-headed cone flowers that are just all in here. You can see there's some bees on this, I'll have to remember what this yellow flower is. It's quite a popular native, and oh wow, yeah, bees are all over that, up a little higher. Yeah, I can't remember it off the top of my head. There are way too many new plant names for me. There's just a ton of different natives that are spreading here now. You can see a lot of the dead seed heads now as well, but this was just from one season of me throwing some seed out. I did a little bit of selective pruning to just keep some of the unwanted, some of the weeds, so to speak, the invasive weeds out of it. And then I mean, just check it out. It's doing its thing. There's plenty of pollinator food out here, and just kind of building up biomass. That's really all that we're looking for, is to build up biomass and have some pollinator stuff out here that looks kind of nice and is not, you know, the fancy stuff so much, but more of a native spread. We also have some other stuff that I put in his yard, some pawpaw trees and some false indigo that's kind of right here up front. The pawpaws are a little bit too much sun. I didn't get them underneath that pin oak very well, so you know, it kind of is what it is. The larger pawpaw is not liking life so much, but the smaller one is really liking it, and hopefully by next year that false indigo will be big enough. I'll just point it out. Hopefully the false indigo will be big enough next year that we can kind of bend it over in shade, but you can see the lower pawpaw is nice and healthy looking, but this big pawpaw is just sun parched. It didn't do so well. And then we've got some food seed that I threw out down here. I'm guessing this is well, let's see. Oh, never mind, that's dandelion. And there's a couple of other things that we'll deal with that next time, I suppose. So yeah, that's just how it's going. Look, maybe you remember the yard from a few years ago, but my front yard has become completely grown in, and all this area that we're looking at right here, there's really not much as far as like noxious weed or any of the invasives that I've been having trouble dealing with. I don't have to deal with them anymore. You can see what my problems are now. That tall grass that I put out there, we've got quite a lot of native flowers that are starting to come up on the other side, and then the mulberry trees and the catalpa, which is one that I'm going to have to kind of keep an eye on. They grow extremely fast, and so I'm going to take out the catalpas once they get to a certain size. But other than that, I haven't had to deal with any weeds, really, so to speak. It just kind of is starting to self-manage, which is really cool. That was my whole purpose, is that I want to get things to a point to where the natives and the food plants are creating so much seed load that those are the problems that I have. And that would be a good problem to have, of course, at least in my opinion. So yeah, there it is. It's getting big, it's getting wild, and this is exactly what I wanted. So if you got any questions about it, leave them down below. Do my best to get to them. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.